programmer, so I am the dev side of the equation, and then grew into an architect. My passion is more into the integration architecture. The reason being, whenever you join a company and then you say, hey, people start kind of categorizing you, hey, are you a Microsoft guy or you're a Java guy? How do you do integration work? So people try to label you. So I tried, in my 25 years, based on the problem that is presented to you, you choose the technology to solve, right? So that's predominantly, my goal. And then I grew to be from a program architect to an enterprise architect, a huge change. And then today, as recently as from 2012 onwards, there was this huge wave into not the conventional IT, but then doing, mobile really took place as a technology which is really viable today, right? So how mobile can be fitting into your enterprise IT, how social can be fitting into your enterprise IT. Cloud was, taken with caution, but today if you look at it, cloud has become mainstream, right? So in the recent years, at least in the past 2 years, I've been consulting with most of the Fortune 100 companies, predominantly in the healthcare space, the insurance space, and the manufacturing space, trying to address some of their digital problems, some of their DevOps problems. What is the viability of DevOps? Where can it make an impact and all that? So I came off hot coming off of 2 or 3 of those engagements for the past year. So this is my first seminar out here where I wanted to kind of share most of the lessons that is learned, and then how some of the enterprises got some decisions to go forward with. So I just wanted to kind of share that story as well. So the topic today here, DevOps itself is a very dangerous word in the sense that you are trying to bring two communities together to work with, right? So I added a digital prefix to the DevOps, so that how do you kind of make more meaningful DevOps in today? A lot of people are talking about digital, but 20 years ago there was digital. So what's the new thing about digital today? Why are you suddenly saying, hey, now we are in the digital era? We have already been in the digital era, right? So what's the difference? So we'll kind of look at some of those aspects of it. So in terms of an agenda, I kind of break my sessions into 3 parts. One is, how does your enterprise look today, right? There are a lot of examples where many of the enterprises have adopted technology and changed their business model, their business process. We'll look at some examples of that. We'll also look at some of the barriers, right? So what are the old age thinking that is coming into the DevOps, adopting DevOps to an enterprise to a practical value, right? To deliver that practical value. And then how business leads DevOps. I wanted to kind of provide some examples in terms of what was the business value that was driven because this company adopted DevOps, right? So 3 examples, and then we'll open the floor for questions. Anybody has heard about 2-track IT? Show of hands. I see 1. Any other? 2-track IT. So IT itself, there is business and IT. So 2-track IT, what that means is, if you look at predominantly, right, I have 2 pictures here, the core enterprise and then the digital enterprise. What is a core enterprise? Core enterprise, typically when you look at a manufacturing system, there will be some ERPs, there will be some CRM systems. They usually focus on their system of record, right? What is the key transactions that is being driven in this company? If you take an insurance company, what are the key information that is handled by that company? Policy information, claims information, right? So these are some of their information that is handled by these insurance companies. So they are predominantly driving information within their enterprise, and then we call that the core enterprise. And how is this core enterprise delivered to the clients? Like, for example, if you take an ICICI Bank, right? How do you typically deal ICICI Bank online? You typically go to their portals, you log in with their, their 16-digit or 12-digit customer ID, and then check your balances, do your transactions whatsoever. So that is the only way you can touch ICICI Bank until today, right? So either you go to a teller, or you go to a kiosk, or you go online. So these are what they call, some of the standardized channels by which you touch an ICICI Bank. What is evolving today is more consumer IT type of technologies, which we call as a digital enterprise. So digital enterprise is something where, can I use my email ID to log into my ICICI Bank? Securely, of course, but then that's an easy way to go. Can I use my email ID as my digital identity? Can I use my mobile device as my digital identity? If the enterprise knows, if an ICICI Bank knows that I am using my mobile device, it will not ask too much of those authentication questions, right? So how do I use my digital identities? How will I use my preferred channels, right? Typically today, for example, you're in the car and you have a mobile device. Would it not be cool if you say, okay, using my Siri in your iPhone or any of your voice-enabled things, can I say, hey, can you log me in and then show me my balances, right? So if you were to have such kind of an interaction, today it is possible, right? So how do you use your digital identity, how you look at your preferred channels, and then how do you look at consumer APIs? So consumer APIs are nothing but how an enterprise is providing information to the consumer beyond their portals, right? Like for example, everybody knows LIC policies. How do you buy an LIC policy? You go to their agents, right? Or probably you get online. Can Flipkart sell LIC policies? It's possible, right? You have some standard policy information. You look at Flipkart. So if LIC were to offer an API which could be consumed by another enterprise, you have now created a new order of business for transaction, right? So that way, it's a new way of thinking, doing your business, and then working with another enterprise to add your revenue. So that is how digital enterprises are being looked today. And this digital enterprises is not about how you handle the enterprise inside, but how do you handle your enterprise interactions outside, right? So that is where we are basically saying, okay, hey, it's a two-track IT model where the digital keeps changing, meaning that, okay, hey, today we all know about Internet of Things. How many of you have touched Internet of Things? How many of you guys used prototypes on Internet of Things? So Internet of Things, so today I have a Fitbit, right? So I can track my heart rate on a continuous mode with my iPhone, right? So there is different ways by which you can log into an enterprise and get information, right? So digital enterprises for me is, we look at systems of engagement. How differently I can engage this enterprise to derive business value or customer satisfaction, etc. Right? Core enterprise, of course, it will be more of the system of record. How do I manage my policy so that this is a true information, it is it is of system integrity, all that. So how do we address two-track IT as a modern enterprise? We will look at that, and then we will look at DevOps, how it could help in the digital enterprise design. So I just wanted to use this example called real-time batch. Everybody knows real-time batch, right? Have everybody used real-time and batch together? Can I say real-time batch process? It looks not so right? I can either say real-time process or it is a batch process. It's a real-time programming or batch programming, right? So if you were to kind of mix both together, it really doesn't make sense, right? Because real-time is now, it's happening. And then batch is like, okay, I add all this information and then now I do something. Same thing with DevOps. People talk about agile programming. Now I'll do continuous integration. Development is all about, okay, taking some features, immediately implementing, so on and so forth. Whereas ops is more about quality checks. It's all about lights on operations. How will I be able to kind of make sure that my quality code is delivered and I'm not breaking production, right? So they are into 3-month release cycles or 1-month release cycles, whatever be your release cycle. So it is more on the batch mode, whereas dev predominantly is in semi-real-time mode or in real-time mode, right? So how do you kind of blend them together to kind of make certain things happen for an organization? So this is the DevOps divide, right? I mean, Brian hit upon a lot of different, pictures in terms of, how a developer views ops. So he had a lot of pictures. I'm more of a texty guy, so you kind of have to work with me on this. So a dev view of ops is, op is so slow. I'm very agile. I'm able to provide certain things, but then ops is not able to deliver on their side. I like something where ops cannot scale to the demands of DevOps. It's too process-centric. And what is the ops view of dev? They basically say, hey, you lack the discipline of delivering code. I make sure that quality code goes into production, right? So that's the ops view thing. So ops says, hey, you guys like to experiment with new technology, right? But then for me, it is code that works. So that's another view of ops view of dev. Your fixes are hacks. You don't really refactor code, or ops can do much better by replacing dev with packaged software. So in a sense that they prefer more products. They don't want real development to happen in an enterprise. So there is a kind of a divide in terms of a friction that happens between dev and ops. IBM calls DevOps as a friction-free organization. So there's a lot of friction, and then how do you create this friction-free organization? And all their tooling, their software tool chains, if you look at some of their positioning in the market, for many of the enterprises, they are basically talking about how DevOps can provide a friction-free organization, right? So from a cultural aspect, these two organizations are divided. Let us look at it more from a process aspect, right? So the process aspect, if you look at it, how many of you guys are more from the business side of things? Business? More from a development and testing? Both these guys then. So there's a lot of development focus group here. There's a lot of testing focus group here, right? How many of us are in the quality or the assurance, make sure that things are checked, put checks and balances? Okay, so there are some quality guys over here, so we just cannot dance around a lot of new things here. So if you look at quality, the deployment, so I kind of grouped them into planning. So planning, the budget approvals, the business folks, there is a cycle time in terms of how do I kind of get the requirements to market, right? So there is a little bit, so I kind of painted it little red there, so that there is a lag in terms of planning and getting your requirements out in terms of what I want in the product. Development test, there is a lot of people. How many people have done agile programming? A lot of people have done agile programming. So agile programming, how about stand-ups? There are agile with stand-ups also. So you guys have done, in your agile projects, have you guys done continuous builds? Maven, Ants? Okay, so continuous builds. Continuous testing, anybody? Okay, there is very less continuous testing. But so continuous builds, continuous testing. So this is an integral part of DevOps where dev is agile, right? Testing is kind of agile. Deployment, not real agile. Based on cloud technologies today, there are options for going agile in terms of delivering services on a daily basis where it can go to production, but there are very less examples in the production side of things, right? So that's where I had more of a red over there, where your business budgeting process and your downstream deployment kind of takes time, right? You're already developed code ready, but then can it go into production? People will say, no, you have to do the acceptance testing, the quality assurance, and then it's more of a hurry up and wait, right? So you hurried up, you did all these stand-ups, you iterated well, but then you need to wait your time until it goes as part of this release package. A customer can say, okay, hey, this thing is not at all working for me. So that comes as your release notes, and then it goes 3 months from now. So there's always that periodical delivery that happens at a deployment level. So this is another enterprise barrier for DevOps, right? So we saw a cultural barrier. We are also now seeing a process barrier, right? So how do we basically address those things? So given such kind of constraints that we are coming from, how many of you guys think DevOps is a reality today? Hey, I need more hands for this. Yeah, so is DevOps a reality today? Hey, we are in a DevOps conference. It is emerging. There is a lot of buzzwords around DevOps. Does DevOps work? Does anybody even tried DevOps in their organizations? It is a reality. That I could say. Has it scaled where every organization is practicing DevOps, or even organizations that are practicing DevOps, have they addressed DevOps across their different projects, or it is 1C, 2C projects, right? So there are two ways of addressing that. So let us look at two examples there. DevOps integration is a reality today. So how much of people know CAMS principles? Okay, CAMS is the what you call, like in database you have that 3 laws, or the relationship, the normalization principles and all that. Same thing applies here. So if you are following CAMS principles, then that means you are a rookie in DevOps, right? So what is CAMS? CAMS is nothing but how are you culturally aligning it? How are you bringing automation into DevOps? And then how do you kind of do the management monitoring? And then how do you share your DevOps principles, right? So CAMS is predominantly how, that's like your kind of your Bible to start DevOps in your organization. What has Salesforce done? We all know Salesforce. Salesforce was the way it was introduced in our as a solution. It completely took the solution offering itself by storm, right? Why it is so? Because it's something where you need not deploy it in your own data center. It is kind of outside there. And then the services, you don't have to worry about the patch upgrades for Salesforce. The patches are automatically happening. You don't have to worry, hey, what version I am running right now. All you have to worry about is, hey, is this feature where I can do my sales call planning? Yes, it is. You put your own data and Salesforce happens for you, right? So how Salesforce really have taken DevOps so very seriously, the first line out there, right? So they are saying approximately on an hourly basis, they are doing 9,000 code changes and 1.5 million tests per hour. So this is what the Forrester report says in terms of how they looked at Salesforce. So this is called continuous delivery, right? So how are they kind of addressing that, and how is the Salesforce platform changing on an hourly basis? So it is a continuous delivery. That doesn't mean that, okay, hey, will it break this code, or now I'm using this version, is that going to break? That is the headache of the Salesforce guys. All you have to do is to use their platform. So when you're looking at Salesforce.com, what they are basically saying is they are releasing product enhancements throughout the year, right? They are using Puppet for their release and deployment management. The way they address the culture issue is by merging both their service engineering folks and their product engineering folks. And then their executive leadership. How many of you guys have read this book called Phoenix Project? Oh, wow, okay. I see some hands there. So Phoenix Project is kind of like the startup Bible in terms of how can you even introduce DevOps into your organization? What are some of the basic thumb rules you need to follow? So their executive stakeholders were really, committed that DevOps have to work. So that executive commitment was there for Salesforce, right? So, and the other thing is they created one group, one technology group with service engineers and product engineers for deployment. So Salesforce.com, so that is how they did DevOps integration for them. So that is a SaaS delivery model. Let us look at Facebook. Facebook, what is their biggest problem? Facebook. everybody worries about concurrent users and registered users in your organization, right? If somebody says, okay, hey, today my concurrent users goes from 10,000 to 20,000, you will immediately say, hey, my data center is not cut out for that, right? That is a huge problem in terms of, hey, what is my network throughput? What is my bandwidth issues? How do I kind of hold this other user load? So that is where, have you ever seen Facebook rarely goes down, right? So how do they handle it? So that is a huge scale management issue for them. So they have that, whatever that 70,000 servers in production all the time. So they use Chef automation software for continuous release management. The biggest, at least the one that raised my eyebrows was they have only 4 people in their data center to manage their entire delivery platform. Imagine that, right? So if you have taken your automation so very seriously, so they took about 10 months to get their problem right, because continuous delivery is not a joke, right? So you will be facing problems in terms of, hey, how will I be able to make sure that this entire automation happens throughout my tool chain, throughout my process. But then that Chef tool, whatever they did, once they do it, then it is more of a taking that on a lights on basis. So that's the learning that we take from Facebook in terms of continuous deployment is a reality. The first time around, it is going to take a big hurdle for you. But then the moment you have that automation and the scripting and then stitching that groups for your continuous delivery process, then after that is where you start getting the dividends for having that continuous deployment. So those are the 2 examples I wanted to kind of run down in terms of why it is a reality today. The other thing, what are some of the drivers for this, right? So the consumers have changed, right? So if you look at some of, I was very, very surprised that my son, the way he is practicing +2, he is doing all of that through his WhatsApp notes, right? He is not using more of the notebooks, right? So everything is social. So social tools are becoming educational tools. So omnipresent experience is, the reason why I didn't use continuous experience was omnipresent is, if you look at emails, right, you don't want to have a login and log out anymore. Whatever tools you are using, you don't want somebody to manage your sessions, right? You have, like for example, how many of you guys here filled an online form 5 pages through, you're ready to submit the button and then it failed, or it said session timed out? So many people, so customer experience doesn't begin on how big the features offers, right? So customer experience begins at the time of login, right? If your login experience is cool, and then the other features automatically follow, right? So session management has taken a serious difference in terms of customer experience today, right? So if I am okay to have a 1-hour session for my application, why should a network guy worry about timing me out every 5 minutes, right? So that is what we are talking about in terms of omnipresent experience in the way people are using software today. It is more consumerism in nature rather than product in nature, right? So we will see some of the the digital experience that people are talking about. Many people don't log in and log out of Facebook. Some of the people, they just want to live out there. So it's a different kind of a world. Even many products, right? So lot of retail companies today, your Flipkarts or your LinkedIn's, they don't log you out. They are there, they re-authenticate you. Behind the scenes, there are tokens that are being refreshed or whatever the technology thinks, that is invisible. But then whatever usage patterns that is established by you want a continuous experience on that, right? So that always logged in experience is getting a lot of traction. Convenient user IDs, right? So how many of you people have some kind of an Excel sheet to log in all their user IDs and passwords, right? Or you guys don't use online at all. So user IDs and passwords, that's a big nightmare, right? So I use a technique where I increment some numbers on the right and then have this complicated password memorized and all that, right? And complicated user IDs to be memorized. So what if you have one authorized email ID by which you could log in, which I was talking before. So that is again becoming mainstream, where most of your insurance companies or all your utilities, imagine all your utilities is managed by one single user ID and one single payment channel. All you have to do is a dashboard, you see all your utility bills, you just check, pay, you're done. Right? So that is consumer experience that you want today. So that is one other use case that is becoming prominent. Personal cloud cache. Have any of you guys used Google's contacts to recover all your contacts from one phone to another? A lot of you guys, right? So a lot of people are now comfortable storing their personal data in cloud, and more will follow. I know some cases in terms of one guy who lost his passport in the midst of travel. He used his iPad. In the iPad, he actually scanned all the passport pages and he was cleared of immigration. Right? So a lot of digitized information or consumer-based digitized information, people are becoming comfortable in using cloud cache type of a use case. Right? Rich multi-factor authentication. Right? So that is another prevalent experience that is coming through. Why so? Because if I am coming via my mobile phone and if I am coming via my desktop, I don't want the same user ID password, right? Or my one-time password type of an experience. I need, depending upon where I am coming from, they should be able to recognize me. If I am calling a bank or if I am calling my any enterprise from my home phone number, that information is with them, right? Is there a way they could tell, hey, here's hello, and here is the things that you could use for you. We know that these are your preferences, right? So that is again another consumerism that is coming through. So all these examples that I'm trying to kind of build here is more in terms of there is a set of engagement based IT tooling that is required by an enterprise, and then there is a core enterprise that you manage. So that is the two-track IT, and then how do you address it from DevOps perspective. Digital-led business models. What is a digital-led business model? Have you guys heard this UPS story, right? UPS, what do? They predominantly, so it started as a trucking company, and then all they do is they manage your goods from one place to another. So how do you call them? You call them a trucking company. Today they don't call them as a trucking company. They call themselves as, we are a technology company doing trucking business. Right? Why? Because most of their transactions, most of their orders, everything is driven through digital business model. So that is the story of UPS. So I'm trying to give a little bit more information into such kind of things, right? So this is a very important slide. I mean, if you have not paid any attention at all in any of my slides, at least follow me through on this one. This is a learning that I got where today US markets, or for that matter even China markets, there is a great opportunity for India as well, is if you are a business which is information managed. I can give you an example, right? So for example, your oil and gas companies, you have oil assets, you have oil fields, you have drilling equipment, you have a way to move. So these are all hard asset companies. Your banks, your insurance, your manufacturing processes, all these things are information-based businesses. If you are an information-based business, there is a very great likelihood some other guy can come into your place, take over your business and run with it. That's what happened in your Ola cabs, right? They are not a transportation operators at all, right? All they did is three things. They introduced digital metering, so you can do card. You guys have used Ola cabs, Meru cabs, right? So what have they done? Digitally, they have created a communication mechanism between the consumer and whoever your service person. You can pay, you can load Ola cash and then pay without even having money. right? And then that service, whatever that is happening, it is not a transportation entity. It is a digital entity. So those guys, when they carved out this model, it is more of an information digital management model rather than no experience at all in the transportation areas, right? So that is what I'm calling in terms of, okay, hey, information-based businesses today are facing a lot of heat from the competition. Netflix, right? How many people know Netflix? So I became addicted to Netflix because it had some serials. So I kind of used the US VPN mechanism to kind of stream movies sitting here, right? Netflix, if you look at the business of Netflix, they are a very fringe operator. That time, Blockbuster video chain was at the height of their businesses. Nobody could beat them, right? And their business model was to, rent out videos, hard videos, right? And Netflix came in. Today, if you look at Netflix, they adopted digital and they made physical video retailing an irrelevant business, right? Because they brought digital into the picture. So this is what happens when some company comes in, adopts more of a digital model and offers customer convenience much better than the industry that is actually fulfilling your services today, right? Insurance, right? So I was actually invited to do the consulting for insurance with another large insurance company. So typically insurance business is done by whom? Their agents, right? Most of the insurance businesses, 80% of the insurance businesses, the revenue is generated from their insurance agents. Can you think about a model where you can have an agent-free insurance, right? So that's what insurance did. They did not have any insurance knowledge to enter into the picture. They know the interactions of insurance, but then they call themselves an agent-free company, right? And they took 20% of the market share from some of these agent-based businesses in a matter of 2 years. And all they do is only two things: digital plans, digital claims. Digital claims, what do they mean by that? Say, like, for example, so another fact is about 60 to 70% of the incidents that happen on the road are minor fender benders, right? So you go, you hit, so it is less than, say, $2,500. So what they are saying is, you capture the pictures of this incident in your mobile phone. You will get a call from the insurance company saying that, okay, if I make the deal to you now that I am giving you, 30,000 or whatever the money that is, let us close this case, right? So that is the level of service model that is happening today in the digital world, and that's how insurance is taking that market today, right? Look at Apple and Google. Apple introduced iPay, right? Google introduced their wallets, right? So they are going into the banking channels, the payment model. So they are kind of, scaring the MasterCards of the world, the Visa cards of the world, who have been predominantly doing banking businesses, right? Or the payment businesses. The reason being, it is an information-led business model. So to have a successful model in digital, you need a engagement experience. And what we are trying to say here is, for that engagement experience, for you to be successful, you need to have that enterprise provide that information for the digital experience. And for providing that, how can DevOps help you, right? So that is the story that we are saying here. So continuous delivery with DevOps. So how can this help you? What we are basically saying, continuous delivery in terms of drivers, we are basically saying we need an agile business model. What do you mean by an agile business model? Right? How much time? My time's up. Okay. So what I listed out here is, there are different entry points to do DevOps, right? So many companies took mobile first opportunities. How many people know here mobile first? Good. So mobile first is a different thinking altogether, right? Facebook took this example where they were in the red line 2 years ago, right? They basically said, if I were to kind of bring in a better experience for my customers, I have to be mobile first, because mobile is the way Facebook is being used. So 80% today, the users are mobile users rather than desktop users, right? So mobile first is now IBM's mantra in terms of how they can enable mobile for most of the enterprises. So if mobile first is an opportunity, how DevOps can help you. So many of these things that are listed here can be served with DevOps, right? So that's the idea that I'm trying to bring in here. This is a reference architecture. It's reference architecture in some ways, where what I have kind of listed out here is digital channels, continuous delivery process, and then what are the 6 pillars for DevOps, and then what are the tool chains. That is more of an open stack tool chain that you have to look at from a DevOps perspective, and then what's your typical deployment backbone, right? So that is a 4-layered model, but then pay attention more to the continuous delivery process. So it is not about just a development team and a deployment team working together, right? So what I did was I did a little bit of a color coding in terms of where you want to pay attention if you want to become a continuous delivery model. If you look at the development and the testing, you are good. I mean, good in the sense that people know about continuous delivery process. But it is the continuous release management, continuous business planning, and how do you take some of the feedback from the customers. That is a cyclical route in terms of how do you kind of bring that process together so that you bring into the continuous delivery model, right? So this kind of gives you the maturity, the current maturity model in terms of any enterprise looking into a service delivery model for continuous delivery. So if I were to say just 2 things, right, from this entire rundown, I'll say start DevOps in your digital capabilities infrastructure. Typically, your digital capabilities are usually cloud-enabled, your digital marketing areas, consumer-facing processes. These are the places where you can start DevOps. You need not really look at DevOps in managing, your large data warehouse. It really doesn't matter because those seldom change. What are the things that are fast-moving and where you want to provide DevOps? That's where you will get the biggest bang for your buck, right? So with that, I kind of close with this parting thought where, I like this Charles Darwin statement where how responsive to change is the best of a species' interest. Thank you very much.